everybody, Greg is here. Probably like many of you, I was following the release of DeepSeek and other LLMs from China. And actually what triggered me to record this video was, first of all, the video by Sabine Hossenfelder. As she says, China will soon lead the world in science and tech. And I pretty much agree with that. But what Sabine mentioned in her video was, again, related to AI agents and LLMs and stuff like that. But I wanted to look at the electric vehicles production, and there was another trigger. First of all, there was a publication by Bloomberg. Before I show you what they said in this publication, what do you think is the biggest disadvantage of electric vehicles? What prevents you to go and buy an electric vehicle even if you have enough money? I think many of you will say charging time. And that's exactly what the publication in Bloomberg was about. They cited a press release by the Chinese vehicle producer BYD. By the way, BYD stands for Build Your Dreams. Fun stuff. BYD claims that they developed a battery that can be charged to drive 400 kilometers, and the charging time takes 5 minutes. So it's comparable to regular gasoline vehicle. And if you compare it to their major Western competitor Tesla, you can see that it's not even close. But if it was only this publication, I would never bother to record a video. However, there was another publication, and this time in a scientific journal, in a Cell Press. It's a decent journal, impact factor of 8, by German group, in which they actually compared the battery which they took from Tesla and the battery which they took from the BYD vehicle. And so I cite here both this article and also the article in Chemical Engineering News. So those guys, so they took the battery from Tesla, they took this battery from BYD, and this title here say, tore down those batteries to see what's inside. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start with Tesla. Here you see the picture of the battery. That's how it looks when you take off the upper layer, and there's many cells. Now, if you take each cell, that's how it looks. Pretty much like a AA battery, but just a bigger one. Of course, it's different structure, but still hints on some lack of imagination, in my opinion, but okay. This is the molecular structure, by the way, of the active ingredient in the cathode. Now, the chemistry that used in Tesla, that's the NMC, lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt oxides. So this particular structure provides bigger density of the energy that you can store, but it's also pretty much expensive, and we'll talk about the price later. And besides that it's more expensive, it has those nickel, manganese, and cobalt, which are pretty, first of all, they're rare, not only expensive, they're also rare, and they're also pretty contaminating. Now let's move to the BYD battery. Okay, that's not a photo, that's a graphical representation. But really what they have inside, they have completely different cell types, though they have those rectangular prismatic cells. And that's the photo of such cells, right? So that's the top view, and that's the side view from those sides. And this is the molecular structure of lithium iron phosphate. You see no expensive metals in it. You see the battery doesn't need to be a cylinder. Anyway, let's see, besides those beautiful pictures made for press release, let's see how those things look inside. So that's how things look when you tear them apart. Those guys, they studied every bit and piece of the structure, not only inside. They checked the filling, they checked how they connect the filling to the enclosure and so on. And everybody is, of course, invited to read the paper. The link is in the description below, especially because I'm not telling everything, I'm skipping some parts. Let's move directly to their summary. And that's the graphical abstract of the paper. A few interesting things. Interesting thing number one. They basically reverse engineered the process of production of those cells. According to what they see, the BYD cell takes a bit longer to produce. It has 2 more steps, which require some additional labor, but it's not significant. Still worth mentioning. Electrical performance. There's nothing much I can say about the electrical performance, so that's kind of as expected. Tesla performs a bit better, but not by a lot. Also, they did the materials investigation. They did TGA. When you heat a material and observe the weight loss. You burn it and see at which temperature it burned. They also saw that there is a big difference between the batteries in terms of the binder that they use inside. So yeah, obviously they use different cathode material, the actual battery material. Anode almost the same, by the way. But they also use different binders. While they were able to detect the materials that BYD use, they were not sure what Tesla use. It's some polymers that are not commercially available, so that's proprietary. This chart below that shows the relative price of the materials. The blue one is Tesla, the gray one is BYD. So yes, Tesla is more expensive, but not significantly, survivably more expensive. Just use the market prices. Another thing, what they did, yes, they did microscopy. They saw that in the cathodes, the particles in Tesla are much bigger, while in BYD much smaller. And what they say, that requires from BYD to use much more binding material, which is, I don't know why it's bad. It's probably not bad. One more interesting thing here, though, that BYD uses within the binding materials, they use a lot of nanotubes, carbon nanotubes. And the authors say those carbon nanotubes, they not only they also bind the particles together, but they also improve the conductivity. And again, that's something scalable. I work with carbon nanotubes. Cool things about them is that you can easily modify them, add some chemistry, do some different functions. So that provides them quite a flexible option here. However, the most interesting and the most important finding is in this chart. What they found is that BYD, when you charge it, it generates much less heat, twice less. If you look at this chart, it's actually even more than twice at some points. At any level of charging, the heating that generated by the battery is smaller, and that is very important stuff. And again, I'll mention it in the summary below. So that's the highlights that the authors themselves put in the paper in the first page. So they studied the design, materials, performance, and process flow of BYD blade and Tesla cells and compared them. And a few details here. Tesla uses laser welding. BYD combines laser and ultrasonic for electrode connections, and that's, by the way, that's what adds additional production steps. The most important highlight, it generates twice heat per volume. Okay, and that's the citation from the body of the paper. The cooling needed for Tesla cells must dissipate twice more heat per volume than that needed for BYD cell at the same load. Therefore, the LFP electrode, which is used by BYD design, is more favorable for designing a cooling strategy for fast charging. And that's what brings us back to this slide. So this fast charging on BYD actually makes sense based on their battery materials and their battery design. It's just possible to scale the charging speed. Of course, this is a press release. We'll wait until they actually go on the market and people try to charge it and see if it's really 5 minutes. But I don't think they would lie in this particular point, which is so easy to check. Either if you buy this battery and tear it apart, or if you buy the car when it comes to the market. Unfortunately, I'm not paid for this video, not by BYD. Maybe they should pay me. I can't say I'm very happy that China leading over the West here, but that's what happens if you do some BS instead of developing your technology. So thanks and have a great day. Please support Ukraine and subscribe to this channel.